Okay, in this tutorial I'm going to talk about what is a balanced diet. And guys, it's kind of, this isn't anything too crazy or too difficult, but it's largely the name. So balanced diet means getting the right amounts of different foods, and that can actually mean slightly different things for different people. So a balanced diet must contain balanced amounts of carbohydrates for energy, fats for energy as well, protein, which are our building blocks and what we need for muscle growth and repair, vitamins, which we need to stay healthy, and minerals and salts, which we also need to stay healthy. Now, vitamins and minerals are things that we don't really eat as an energy source, but they're things we need small amounts of just to keep our body running properly. And dietary fiber, or roughage, which, like we said, just helps things move through the intestines. So dietary fiber, or roughage, although it is not digested, is a very important part of our diet because it's bulky and absorbent. It helps our body to push waste through the intestines and out of the body. And so dietary fiber is found in the cell walls of plant foods. So plants are made out of little plant cells, and the outside of them, the cell wall, has a lot of this fiber in it. So things like cereals and vegetables and fruit, largely veggies is going to be a really good source, but especially whole grains, things like that are going to be a good source of fiber. And fiber, basically, it actually ends up just going straight through us, but that's actually quite important in helping us push our food through the intestines and actually clearing out waste from the intestines. And there's evidence that a high fiber diet, people who eat a high fiber diet are less likely to get colon cancer. So, balanced diet needs balanced amounts of all those things that we need: carbohydrates, fats, protein, vitamins, minerals and salts, dietary fibers. I could put water on there as well, but it's not really a food. Although I suppose vitamins and minerals and things aren't food too. Obviously we need some water to live too. But let's focus more on, what does this word balanced mean? Does balanced mean that I need equal amounts of these? Do I need the same amount of carbohydrate as fat, and the same amount of protein, the same amount of minerals and vitamins? No. Balanced means we need the right amount to keep us healthy. So let's have a look. A balanced diet needs all of these things, but in different proportions. So for instance, we only need very small amounts of vitamins and minerals and salts. Getting too much salt in your diet is bad for your heart and things like that. So some of these things we only need very small amounts of. We need them. Without them we would be quite ill, but we only need very small amounts of them. So for instance, one thing that most of us get too much of is just energy, too much energy. So that's usually because we eat too many carbohydrates and fats. And the body will basically store the extra energy, the excess energy, as fat. So too much salt, like I said, can increase the chance of heart disease, and too little fiber increases the chance of colon cancer. So if we don't get the right amounts of these things, it's going to affect our health. And a balanced diet means balancing basically what we take in our body with our body's needs. Now, especially energy, that's one that's really sort of facing society at the moment. Lots of people getting overweight. One of the things with energy is that everyone needs a different amount of energy. So we actually have to balance the amount of energy that we take in with the amount of energy we need or use. So energy balance is about balancing the energy intake, the calories we consume. So calories, when you see calories on a packet, calories is a way of measuring the amount of energy in a food. Another way is called kilojoules. So it's a little bit like using meters or feet or kilometers or miles. You've got calories and kilojoules are just two different ways of measuring the amount of energy in something. And then on this side of the balance, we've got how much energy we use. So resting calories, well, that's just the idea that even when you're resting, even if you're just lying there asleep, you're still burning some calories because your body needs to keep your heart beating, your lungs breathing, and keep the body warm. A lot of energy goes into keeping your body warm. But we also spend some energy on all our activities, and especially things like exercise. So if we spend too much energy and we don't eat enough, if we don't consume enough, we'll lose weight. And eventually, if you lose too much weight, that's not healthy either. But if we take in more energy than we're spending or using, then we'll start to store up the excess as fat, and we'll gain weight. Which is also has if that goes on for longer periods of time, There are issues like heart disease and diabetes and things that can be associated with weight gain. So it's just a matter of balancing how much we're taking in with what the body actually needs. Now I thought I'd look a little bit more at these things called vitamins and minerals. So here I've got a table of minerals. Minerals are things like iron, iodine, calcium, fluoride, and these are things that essentially help to keep us healthy. These are things we need usually smaller amounts of. We don't eat massive amounts of iron or iodine, but these are things that we need to keep healthy. So why do we need iron? Well, some of you probably know why we need iron. It's for our blood. Iron helps us carry oxygen through our blood. And you may have heard someone say that if you're lacking in iron, you might be anemic. Now, girls especially, because they once they're a bit older and then they start getting their period, they often lose blood, and so they lose iron. Girls especially are often a little bit more susceptible to being anemic because they lose iron each month. And so they have to be careful that they get enough iron. If you don't get enough iron and you become anemic, basically you won't carry as much oxygen in your blood, and that'll make you really tired and really lethargic. You'll be real tired and lack energy because you don't have enough oxygen going around your blood. Iodine is something that normally occurs in the soil and is absorbed by plants, but in New Zealand our soils are very low in iodine. So in New Zealand it was actually a problem that people weren't really getting enough iodine, and that's actually why they add it to salt these days. You notice when you buy salt at the supermarket, it'll say iodized salt. It's just got a little bit of iodine added, so that when we eat salt, we're getting the tiny amount of iodine that we need too. And this is used by our thyroid gland to make hormones and things like that. Calcium, we need calcium for healthy bones and teeth, so you know that one. So a lot of these minerals, you've heard of them before. Fluoride is something that we put in toothpaste, and again that helps keep our teeth kind of strong and healthy. So not getting enough of these can affect things like your teeth and bones, or can affect your hormone levels, can affect how well you carry oxygen through the blood. Making sure we get enough of these just keeps us nice and healthy. Vitamins. Vitamins always have, they're always nice and easy to identify, because if you look on a packet of something, they're always labeled vitamin A or Vit A or vitamin B, guys, vitamin really means vita, means, I think it's Latin, I think it comes from the Latin, or it might be the Greek, I always forget, but vita means life, and min means a little bit. These are things that we need a small amount of to live, to carry on living properly. And vitamins are things that our body can't make itself. It can't make this out of its food. We need them in our diet. We need to eat them. So things like vitamin A, B, C, D, K. There are different B vitamins, like B1, B2. There are about 13 vitamins, I think, or at least 13 that we need. There's at least 20 minerals, I think, that we need. So there's lots of these things that we need, only in very small amounts. But without them, our bodies won't run properly. So a lack of vitamin A, we get sort of night blindness, and we can't see very well in dark conditions. And a lack of vitamin B affects our nervous system. We become very tired, and we lose our appetite, and muscles become weak, things like that. A lack of vitamin C caused scurvy, something that was common in sailors. That's why sailors used to be called limeys, because they used to take limes with them, or other citrus fruits, to make sure they got enough vitamin C. And that's a condition where you just get really weak bones. Vitamin D is something we actually get through our exposure to sunlight. Sunlight converts something in our skin to vitamin D, or helps to convert something to vitamin D. And without that, our bones become soft. And so there's lots of different vitamins here that each play a role in our body and the cells in our body functioning correctly. Now, you don't need to remember all of these. You don't need to remember all of their functions. You don't need to remember the conditions that are caused at the end. All you need to do is take away the message that vitamins and minerals are things that we need in small amounts to keep our bodies functioning properly. And another important idea there is, because there's 13 plus vitamins we need, and 20 plus minerals we need a varied diet, just to make sure that we are getting small amounts of these things. And you might not need these vitamins every day, but you probably do need them every couple of days, or you need to make sure that you are regularly getting small amounts of these things. Our ability to store some vitamins is very limited, so some of them we may need every day or after relatively short periods. But this is one of the reasons why it's important that you don't kind of just eat the same thing every day. Alright, cool. I've put a couple of questions here that kind of relate to maybe a balanced diet. So I've put something here like, one fast food chain has a supersized cup that holds almost a litre of fizzy drink, which is just crazy. This would contain about 2,500 kilojoules of energy. That's if it was filled with something like, you know, Coke or Fanta or any of those fizzy drinks. It would be almost, I think, 2,500 kilojoules. So if walking uses up about 1,000 kilojoules in an hour, how long would you have to walk to burn off to use up this much energy? So let's go through that. Now guys, in a test or exam, if we gave you a question like this, we'd give you something pretty basic. Even if your maths isn't too great, you should essentially be able to work this out. So in this example, let's think about it. If I walk for an hour, I'm going to burn off 1,000 kilojoules. So that's after 1 hour. If I walk for another hour, I'm going to burn off another 1,000. So how much are we at yet? So that would be 2,000 kilojoules. I'd burn that off in 2 hours. Okay, so I need to burn off 2,500. So how long would I have to walk to burn off 500? Well, 500 is half as much, so I'd have to walk for half an hour. So to burn off 2,500 kilojoules, basically, guys, I'd have to walk for about 2.5 hours. Alright, just put hours like that. Alright, so guys, to burn off about 2,500 kilojoules, I'd have to walk for about 2.5 hours. Now that's not even factoring in the energy that's in the fries and the burger or any of the other stuff that you might eat as well. So you can imagine eating fast food at a fast food joint, and especially drinking those sugary drinks. You have to actually be quite an active person to be able to eat those regularly without putting on weight. And that's sort of another question you might get. So I think we've done that one. Another question you might get is why would the energy needs of people be different? So for instance, one thing would be, why would the energy needs of males tend to be higher than females? Well, the main answer there is simply that males are larger. So if you've got a bigger body, you'll need more energy to maintain that. Or another answer might be that males tend to be more active or have jobs that involve sort of, harder, more physical labor. I don't know if that's always true, and especially these days it's probably not as true as it used to be, but that's one possible explanation. Why would a child or a teenager maybe need more energy than someone in their early 20s? Well, because they're still growing. Why would a pregnant woman need more energy? Well, because of the growth of the baby. And what would happen if a pregnant woman didn't eat enough? Well, essentially it could affect the growth or the development of the baby. So the amount of energy that you need is going to depend on whether you're growing, so how old you are. It's going to depend on how active you are, how much exercise, what kind of a job or lifestyle you do. Like if you do a job, if you're training for the Olympics and that's kind of your job, well, you're going to be really active. You're going to have to eat a lot. I met a dancer, was a sweet young dancer, and I had, was having dinner with her with a bunch of friends, and I was sort of amazed at how much she was eating. She was eating more than any of the guys. So this young female dancer, who was a very small person, was eating more than any of us. And that's just because she spends all day dancing, that she burns that off, and she wasn't fat at all, even though she was piling the food onto her plate. And she just has a job or in her lifestyle she burns a lot of energy. So it just really depends on our lifestyle, and again, it's balancing the amount of energy we take in with the amount of energy we need. All right, on to the next bit. Okay, let me get my arrow. Okay, So, here's another question for you. If you only ever ate pizza, it would be quite bad for your health. Why? Well, let's talk about it. Does pizza kind of have all of the food groups in it that we need? So, we've got here the crust, all right, which is basically bread, which is made from wheat. So that's our carbohydrates. Now, I'm just going to write carbs because of space. All right, so I've got things like cheese. I've got lots of cheese over here. Cheese has got a lot of, what's cheese got a lot of in it? Well, it does actually have quite a bit of protein. So cheese has quite a bit of protein in it, but cheese has a lot of fat. And you'll notice that's what actually makes it oily. When you melt cheese, a lot of the oil starts to come out of it. If you make anything with melted cheese, you'll start to see oil pooling on it and around it. We've got meat here. The meat, the pepperoni, is protein. So meat has a lot of protein in it. But meat also has a fair amount of fat in it too. Now, we've got bits of capsicum here. We've got mushrooms. We've got probably a bit of tomato. Can't quite see it here, but maybe even the tomato sauce underneath. We've got olives. So the mushroom is technically a fungus, and the others are veggies, though. Fruits or vegetables. So there is actually some veggies on this thing too, which means there will actually be a few, vitamins and minerals. And even potentially a tiny bit of fiber in here. So our veggies on the pizza here are going to have a little bit of fiber in them and some vitamins and minerals. So could we just live off pizza? Well, you could certainly live off it for a while. You could probably, go several months just eating pizza. But it's not going to be good for you. And why is that? It's got all of the food groups in it. We've got small amounts of everything in there. Well, for a start, really, the big issue here is that we're going to have lots of fat. Mainly fat. We're going to have, we're going to be very high in fat. So very high in fat. It's going to be probably quite high in salt as well. Probably quite high in salt. It's going to be very low. It's going to be very low in things like our vitamins, minerals, and fiber. So it's the amounts of things that are the issue here. It probably has a little bit of everything, but it's really the amounts. It's going to be high in fat, high in salt, and probably not have enough, vitamins, minerals, and fiber in it for our diet. There's another reason, though, why this eating just pizza is going to be pretty unhealthy. It'll have some vitamins in there. I'm sure capsicums have some vitamins in them. I'm sure olives have some vitamins in them. But it won't have every vitamin, and it won't have every mineral. So if we keep just eating pizza and nothing else, we will start to be lacking in some sort of vitamin or mineral. So remember, guys, vitamins and minerals are one of the reasons we need a varied diet, because we only need very small amounts of them, but we need very small amounts of all of them. And any given food is unlikely to have all of those vitamins and minerals in it. So eating just pizza all the time and nothing else would be bad for you, because you probably wouldn't be getting all of the vitamins and minerals you need. Cool. Alright, guys, we're almost there. So one more question at the end here. You may have heard of these words, and you might be expected to know these for a test. Malnutrition, anorexia, and bulimia. Well, malnutrition is basically just when you're not getting enough food. Alright, so malnutrition is a big issue in the third world, especially in some areas when there are droughts and things like that, where a person just doesn't get enough food. And the body will start to essentially break down the muscle and other parts that at first it'll use up all the fat, but once it's done that, it'll start to break down things like muscle, and basically the body starts to waste away. So malnutrition is not getting enough food, but it can also actually mean not getting enough of a certain type of food. So someone might be getting enough in terms of the quantity of food, but it might be missing something. So in the third world, often in some areas, people get rice to eat, and there's enough rice to eat, but they don't get any protein, and the lack of protein means it affects muscle growth and development, and so they suffer because of that. Or they don't get enough vitamin, one of the vitamins, and they get really ill because of that. So malnutrition is when we don't get enough of one or several of those food groups or those things that we need in our food. Anorexia. What is anorexia? Well, anorexia is a condition, and it affects it's quite common actually in teenagers, and that's often because you're going through a period in your life where you're subjected to a lot of ideals about image and things like that. Anorexia is essentially when someone starves themselves in order to lose weight or maintain a very low weight. And anorexia, the risk is there that they lose so much weight that they suffer from some of the same side effects as malnutrition. So this is essentially people starving themselves to stay really thin. And it's really unhealthy. The body will really start to break down, the muscle and things like that. And it's really not good for you. And it is actually largely also a psychological problem. Like it's often people feel that they have to be thin for some reason, and are very driven to do that. The thing is, ultimately, starving yourself isn't going to be healthy for your body. Your body needs a certain amount of fat in the body. It needs a certain amount of energy stored to actually be healthy. And so, for instance, people who suffer from anorexia, who don't eat enough and get too thin, for instance, are often infertile. They can't have children. Or there are other side effects, and some of them can even die if they really take it to the extremes. So the body is meant to have a small amount of fat in it to actually be healthy and make some of the hormones in our bodies and things like that. Bulimia is another one where basically people make themselves throw up, so that they eat a meal but then they throw it up. So it's kind of that they get the taste and everything like that, and if they feel hungry they can eat, but then they just throw it up so that none of the nutrients are absorbed. And that again, it's often people do it to prevent gaining weight. But bulimia is really bad for the body, because again, it's starving the body like an anorexia, but your stomach acid is very acidic, and every time they throw up, the acidity of that burns the esophagus and the throat, and also the teeth. So people who are bulimic often have really bad teeth, and some of them even can burn their esophagus and things so badly that part of it has to be surgically removed, and then they stretch it and reattach it, and that has all sorts of complications and things like that. So bulimia is kind of like anorexia, and in some ways can be even worse in terms of the damage it does, because not only is it starving the body, the acidity of what's being thrown up can do a lot of damage too. So these are things that are really not a balanced diet, or not a good way. Really, you want to be making sure that you're getting a lot of fiber, that you're not eating too much, you're having a varied diet, that you're not always feeling hungry, but at the same time that you're eating good quality foods, and that you're feeling healthy is the main thing there. So guys, just for a test or an exam, just being aware of what these terms maybe mean. So malnutrition, not getting enough of something. Anorexia is when people kind of starve themselves, and bulimia is when people often are throwing up their food to again sort of starve themselves. So 3 again cases of a diet that's not so balanced. Another word maybe that one probably already familiar with would be like obesity, is when we gain far too much weight, and when that weight gain starts to impact our health. We can't move as effectively, but also it can cause things like heart disease and diabetes and things like that. So people who are obese will suffer from some side effects of that obesity too. So key thing there, balanced diet, just getting the right amounts of all the different types of food so that we're healthy and happy and our bodies are functioning well. Cool, okay guys, I hope that helped, and I'll leave it there.